Despite losing in overtime to a very interesting call, the Hurricanes still dug deep, got the point, and are now on a 5-game point streak. We'll talk about that and more on a Tuesday edition of Lockdown Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making us your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking anything about your Carolina Hurricanes, as we are now part of the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Zach Martin, the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hot Cares. Also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On today's show, we get to recap the Hurricanes' fourth. They lost in overtime to the Detroit Red Wings. Get to hear from Shayne Gostisbehere and Brind'Amour following the very interesting, controversial, whatever you want to call that, ending to that game where they at least got the point, but in reality, it would have been a lot better if they got the two. And then we get to preview Tuesday night's game against the St. Louis Blues to wrap up the back-to-back, essentially, for this road trip for the Hurricanes. So, overall, first two periods, Hurricanes were the better team. They outshot Detroit 12-8, 7-5, but unfortunately they were down 3-0 after those first two periods. An early goal in the first, 132 win. Second period, 128 in, and then 454. So within a span of the first, when you look at the first couple periods, you're talking under 2 minutes. And then the second period, under 2 minutes, you're down 2-0. And then within 5 minutes, you're down 3-0. Out of the early goals, the Hurricanes were the better team, essentially, for the most part. I'll hit the Red Wings. The Red Wings did have 25 blocked shots, while the Hurricanes had 34 total. They outshot them 14-4 in the third, and I think that's when you really saw that, started coming back in for the Hurricanes. And you're talking about, a Jackson Blake power play goal less than 5 minutes in. 3 minutes later, Seth Jarvis, shorthand goal from Sebastian to get his 21st. And then with, 3:01 left in the game, Shayne Gostisbehere, power play goal. All we talked about, it's one of those things where you look at the Hurricanes and it's, they're the better 5-on-5 team, advantage to the Red Wings on special teams. Red Wings went 1 for 4 on the power play, but the Hurricanes went 2 for 5. And on top of that, the Hurricanes score shorthanded. All three of the Hurricanes' goals in this game were in special teams. 2 power plays, 1 shorty. 5-on-5, it was a more neutral game. And now, unfortunately, you're split in the season series against this game. But the big thing is, and I know it's definitely going to be talked about for sure for how this game ended, was a very egregious non-call on a cross-check. And already see on social media of some people saying it was a dive, it was barely a push. You see it on the replay. Arms are somewhat extended. Shayne Gostisbehere does go down. And, of course, we'll hear from him and Brind'Amour in segment 2. But hey, man, even the Red Wings broadcast, they even said that, that Andrew Copp got away with one. If the broadcast is saying that he got away with one, and basically a majority of not just Hurricanes fans, but fans of other teams seeing the video, a lot of them are saying that was a cross-check. And you guys heard me say it too. You got to control what you can control. You can't rely on the refs to make the right calls or, rely on them to do the right thing. You got to take care of your own business. But in this instance, it's 3-on-3 in overtime. In the replay, the ref is clearly looking at the play. It wasn't a contested effort. But in the end, Andrew Copp gets wide open in front of the goal because he basically pushes Shayne Gostisbehere from behind, arms extended enough to where it's like it's a cross check by a lot of people. Even the broadcasting for the Red Wings said he got away with it. No call, goal scores. Yeah, you unfortunately lose in overtime. But you do push your point streak to 5 games. You're hopefully going for 6 against St. Louis, but that's a tough way to end a game like that where you got to give a lot of credit to the Hurricanes. Yeah, they were the somewhat better team for the first couple periods. Just unfortunately, some early goals in the first and the second kind of put them in a hole. Third period, 3 goals on 14 shots on the special team. They had a couple opportunities in overtime. It's just, weren't able to cash in. So you still get the point. You wish you could have gotten the 2, but at least the takeaway for me is the Hurricanes didn't roll over and die. Like, we haven't seen some of their games this year where it's like Hurricanes are out of it. You see them kind of trying, but it's kind of like, I don't know, are they going to make the comeback? The Hurricanes made the comeback. They forced overtime. They got the point, and I would have been more understanding if it was like, they got beat on a 2-on-1, or it was just a really great shot that beat Freddie. Freddie made some big saves when he needed to. There were some others you wish you had, but I mean, that's just the duality of this game where he made the saves he needed to. There's a couple he wish he had. But in the end, you're looking at a goal that was decided on a play where a lot of people are viewing it as it was an egregious miss. And, some people are going to be like, cry, cope, whatever you want to call it. It's just it's a tough look to when you look at the replay. You're looking at, arms extended for the most part. It's not like a guy just immediately goes down when he doesn't know the guy's right behind him. And the home broadcast said he got away with it. That's kind of there's your selling point. But regardless of the facts, the team didn't really fall over. They didn't quit on it. They kept playing. They forced the overtime. They got the point. That's what I think, for me, the big takeaway from it is the loss is a loss. It is what it is. But at least you saw the special teams, once again, for the Hurricanes come up very, very big. And I know that Rod said, they've just been doing tweaks here and there. They add Jordan Staal to the power play a little bit. You got Jacob Slavin back finally. You got Sebastian Aho. You got Seth Jarvis back. You scored 3 goals on special teams. Once again, the power kill does their job. They go 3 for 4, score shorty, and the power play scores 2 of themselves. That's doing the job. Like, special teams is playing really well. And unfortunately, Frederick Anderson, like I said, wish he had some saves. He, 4 goals allowed on 18 shots, finished with a 7.78 save percentage. He made the saves when he needed to, but overall, it was just like you kind of wish you had a little bit more out of it. But in the end, you got the point. Nothing else you can do about that. You just got to view it as a, dang if you do, dang if you don't. And, it just kind of came down to a play where you kind of wish there was, a call made. But sometimes that's just the way the NHL officiating is, and that's across the board. It's not just against the Hurricanes. There's been egregious calls across the league, and it's just one of those things where it's nothing's really going to change. But in the end, like I said, didn't roll over, got the point. Yep, just have to just chalk it up as it is, what as it is, and then you kind of move on and get ready for St. Louis. Like I said, I wish there was more of a deeper analysis on this game. But the first 2 periods, it was just Detroit scored early in their periods. Hurricanes did outshoot them. It's just John Gibson was doing his job. Third period, the Hurricanes were able to score, kept the pressure on, put up 14 shots, scored 2 power plays as a shorty. You force overtime, you get the point. That's just one of those type of games where it's, you got a 5-on-3, you scored. Great job. You actually took advantage of your man advantage and killed the penalties that you needed to. And in the end, it was a play where there's nothing else you can really do about it. And the fact on top of that, too, that they've added 2 game misconducts to Aho and Shayne Gostisbehere afterwards, it's like, okay, whatever, man. You're going to call misconducts in a game that's already over when there's just a lot of people going like, okay, what the heck was that? But it is what it is. But speaking of that, though, what did Shayne Gostisbehere and Rod Brind'Amour say after the game? We'll stick around and we'll listen and react to that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boost you want to apply. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then you play your profit boost to go even after bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. Access to an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Hurricanes, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. It invites to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for the listeners of Locked On Hurricanes and all other shows within the network. So tap the link in the show notes or description to learn more and sign up today. Now, welcome back to a segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we talked about the game overall. Hurricanes lose 4-3 in overtime. Came back from 3-0 down. Got the point. Should have gotten the 2, but hey, you'll take the point. You move on and all that stuff. So what did Shayne Gostisbehere and Rod Brind'Amour say following the loss? Well, we'll listen and react to that right now.
Shayne, obviously I know this is a frustrating way to end this one. What did you see on the final play leading to that goal in overtime?
I don't know. What did you guys see? I mean, I don't just follow my own there. I mean, it's kind of tough. Maybe it happened too fast for the ref to see, but, he's wide open for a reason. But we got to move on. We got to take some positives away. Down 3-0 going to third, tough building the play, and getting a point out of that is huge for us.
Obviously, walking away with that point, as you mentioned, special teams playing a massive role. What did you see in kind of the encouragement of those paying off? Yeah, just timely. We're down 3-0. We get one, make it 3-1. You never know what's going to happen. And, obviously a shorthanded goal too. And, and then getting one on the 5-on-3, it's big for our special teams, got us that point, and just got to learn from it and move on.
What would you have liked to see differently in the first 40 minutes?
Just playing a little, more direct. I think we gave him some freebies tonight where, maybe if we don't give those, we're walking out of here 3-1 or something. So I think for us, just, it's a big positive for us to get a point out of that game.
From top to bottom, what did you see from your group's ability to come back from a 3-goal deficit and force a point?
I thought we were good for most of the night. I mean, obviously, I didn't love a couple of the turnovers that led to their goals. And that's the kind of team they have where, you give them one little good chance, they can just put it in the net as they showed. But other than that, I really thought, we were pretty solid the whole night. Obviously, good third to come back and cash in on our opportunities. And, tough way to end the game. I mean, we all saw what happened. I mean, it is what it is, but hopefully that evens out somewhere down the line.
It was obviously a game of special teams for the majority of this one, especially from your group. How encouraging was that on both sides?
I thought we were good. I mean, I give up the first one. There's not much you can do. Kind of a shot in, tip, rebound. Okay, that's going to happen. But I thought in general that's a really good power play, one of the top in the league. And I thought we did a nice job. Gleason made a good couple of adjustments. I thought that really paid off. And power play obviously came through with a couple. So, all in all, I liked the overall of the game. Didn't like, obviously, how it ended.
Saturday night, Seattle, the story postgame was that the group stuck with it. A little bit of a different fashion from this one, but what makes those guys good at sticking with it even when it gets dire?
Well, I think we understand how the game's got to go. And it's you don't really play the score. You play your next shift. And you got a certain way you got to do things. And, I feel like when we do that, we're pretty effective, and the score usually takes care of itself. I mean, tonight, like I said, when we didn't, they put it in our net, and it was pretty obvious. And then, like I said, once we kind of got on it again, I thought we had the bulk of the play.
We've talked a lot about Seth Jarvis and his fearless nature, obviously putting himself in some situations tonight and gets rewarded shorthanded. What have you seen from him since his return?
Well, you just said it. I mean, it doesn't look like he missed a beat, and he knows he's got to play a certain style of game and to be effective, and that was a huge goal. Shorthanded, Fishy made a great play. He had one early at the post. They're a dynamic pair out there when they're shorthanded.
Big thank you to Shayne Gostisbehere and Rod Brind'Amour as always. And starting off with Ghost, you can definitely tell he was frustrated, and he's like, what did you guys see? Don't really fall down that easily. And I mean, it's really tough to be like, okay, you're making sure the guy behind you doesn't really have any opportunity. He's there somewhere, but then you getting hit in the back. It's like, that's a tough scene. Like, it's full arm. It's not like he just barely got tapped or the guy like just put a stick on his back and he just falls down. Like, there was an extension there. And, it's an unfortunate way to lose, but he did say, there are some positives. You scored on the special teams a couple times. You came back, you fought hard, and you got a point out of it. He did say, they played a little bit better, more straightforward in the first 40 minutes, maybe not caught some turnovers to let the Red Wings get their goals that were necessary, but just for the fact that, they didn't roll over. They didn't just quit. They fought back, and, they were putting up opportunities. And in the end, you got the point out of it. You got to move on to the next one. There's really nothing you can do about it. It's just one of those things where you wish you kind of, got a better result out of a play that was, very much there, but wasn't called. And you even talk about Rod Brind'Amour. Rod's like, we all saw it, but hopefully down the road something, changes, or it's just something that happens for us down the road or something like that. You can tell Rod is just really tired of, whatever is going on with the fact that you're missing a lot of calls, or it's just, it's not really going the same way on both sides. It's officiating across the board. It's not just for the Hurricanes. It's not just, for other teams. It's just everyone overall. Like, anyone who's a fan of hockey in the NHL right now, there are so many calls that are missed. There are so many games where it's, certain teams getting more calls than others. There's egregious ones that get let go, and then there's the ticky-tack ones that get called. It's just one of those things where it's all about consistency in the NHL. It's not just, one team's getting screwed over the other. It's the consistency that counts. Call the game even. If you're going to call one thing, call it the same for the other team. Don't start getting picky choosy, or when you're going to decide to do something, you're going to let things go. It's like, if you're going to make those calls, make the calls. So that's just one of the things. But Rod did say, it's unfortunate for the couple turnovers that were the freebies, like Shayne Gostisbehere said, that led to Detroit scoring a couple of their goals. He's like, but other than that, they made the adjustments. Special teams played really well. PK gave up a goal early, but he said that Tim Gleason and those guys figured out, made the right adjustments, and you saw, them play better, shut down the Red Wings, especially our top 5 team on the power play, only let them score 1. And then talk about how important, Seth Jarvis and Sebastian Aho are on the penalty kill, because, hey, look at that. You score a goal, you make up for, an early power play, and you kind of take the advantage back on your side of it. So, and Rod's like, Seth knows he has to play a certain way, and that's why he's just been very impactful to where he's got 21 goals on the season. And it's just, Rod's like, he liked the game overall. It's just, the finish wasn't that great, and you just kind of wish there wasn't a couple of turnovers, but it's just one of those things where you move on to the next game against St. Louis on Tuesday. You take the point. It is what it is, and you just got to control what you can control. And, you're on a 5-game point streak. Hopefully you move it to 6 and get back in the win column and move on from there. But he liked what the team did. It's just those couple of things just didn't really, work out, and just wish the ending was better. But you know what? You got the point. Move on. Get ready for Tuesday night against the St. Louis Blues. That said, we talked about the Red Wings game, heard from Ghost and Brind'Amour following the game, but now we're going to preview the Hurricanes against the St. Louis Blues, and we'll do that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of the Locked On Hurricanes. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing really gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It's no surprise Quo is the number one rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnAHL. That's quo.com/LockedOnAHL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. All right, so we talked about the Red Wings game. Is what it is. Got the point. That's all that really matters. And then we heard from Ghost and Brind'Amour. But now we're going to talk about the Hurricanes game on Tuesday night against the St. Louis Blues to complete the back-to-back part of the road trip. So 7:30 p.m. Eastern start time. Why is that? Well, it's because it's an ESPN Plus Hulu game. But Mike and Tripp will be on the call for 99.9. The fans, make sure to tune in for that. This is the first of 2 meetings between these two teams. Next time they're going to meet is when the Blues come to Raleigh on March 12th. Hurricanes 28-14-4. St. Louis 17-21-8. Over the last 5 games, Logan Stankoven 4 goals, 5 points. Andrei Svechnikov 4 assists. Looking at the St. Louis Blues, Robert Thomas 2 goals and 4 points, and Alexei Tropochenko 3 assists. Now, over the last 10 games, unfortunately, with the Hurricanes losing, they are on a 5-game point streak, but they lost their 4-game winning streak. St. Louis Blues are on a 3-game losing streak, and they're 4-6-0 in their last 10 games. So 2 teams kind of going a little bit of opposite directions. Yes, both teams lost their most recent games, but Carolina 6-3-1. Blues 4-6-0 with a little bit of a longer losing streak, losing to Chicago, Utah, and the Golden Knights. Now, what does the tale of the tape say about both of these teams? Well, the Hurricanes have the advantage on the special teams. After their 2 power play goals against the Red Wings, they're up to 16th in the league, dead smack middle at 20%. And hey, you love to see it. You're not dead last, and you're not in the low 10s. You are at 20%. So you're really clicking at 1 for every 4 power play opportunities. And hey, you'll gladly take that for sure. Like I said, 16th, can't be upset about that. Or the 1 for 5. You get the point. Penalty kill, 19th in the league. Still a little bit down, but they did go 3 for 4. Not bad, 79.1%. The Blues, on the other hand, 26 on the power play at 16.7%. Penalty kill, 76.5%. Which puts them at 28. So they are in the bottom 6 of the league across power plays and penalty kill. Now looking at goals for and goals allowed, the Hurricanes are 7th in goals for at 3.35. Goals allowed drop back a little bit to 15th at 2.98. However, 5-on-5 wise, just like special teams, the Hurricanes have the advantage. The Blues, 3.46 goals allowed per game, which puts them 29th. So not dead last, but really close at the bottom. You're talking bottom 4 or 5 of the league. Goals for per game, though, this is where it's really bad for the Blues. They're dead last in the league at 2.48 goals per game. They are scoring less than 2.5 goals a game, and they're almost giving up 3.5 per game. So if all is supposed to go according to plan, of course, if we're talking, what's the tail of the tape say, the Hurricanes are a better 5-on-5 team. This is the opportunity where the Hurricanes can really take advantage of a team that gives up a lot of goals and doesn't score goals. So this is it's not a must win, but this is also a can't lose, don't fall into the trap game, which is the St. Louis Blues. You took a really good Red Wings team to overtime after recovering a 3-0 deficit, but you do not want to give the Blues an opportunity to do something against you when the fact that they are scoring less than 2.5 goals a game and they're almost giving up 3.5 goals per game. That being said, what are the possible goalie options? Well, we just saw Frederick Anderson play on Monday night. That means we're going to get Brandon Bussi. 16-2-1, 2.28 goals against, man of 4 save, 1 shot. You heard me talk about on the Monday show, who I thought should be in against Detroit. They decided to go with Freddie. So now Hurricanes are going to have to go to Brandon Bussi. The thing is, though, who do the Blues go with? Well, the Blues do have 4 shutouts, 3 to Joe Hofer, 1 to Jordan Binnington. However, Binnington 8-12-6, a 3.53 goals against and an 8.71 save percentage. But Joel Hofer 9-9-2 with a 2.94 goals against and an 8.97 save percentage. Both goalies sub 900. Both goalies almost over 3 goals allowed per game, and Hofer is the only one at 500. Even Jordan Binnington is having a very, very bad season, even for Jordan Binnington standards. So I can see them going with Hofer, but I can see them really want to try to go with Jordan Binnington for the fact that he's Canada and all that stuff for the Olympics. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter who's in net for the Blues, Binnington or Hofer. They're both not playing. They both don't really have great numbers across the board. Yeah, Hofer's got the shutouts. Of course, it doesn't help, too, in the fact that his defense isn't really playing that well, and the team is also just not scoring very well either. I mean, Robert Thomas is the only guy who has 33 points out of these 42 games he's played. Him and Jake Neighbors are the only ones in double digits. Minus Weiss for forward core. Brain Shen's a minus 23. Bushnevich minus 15. Neighbors minus 14. Oscar Sundqvist minus 13. You get the point. Looking at the defense, Justin Falk, former captain of the Hurricanes, 21 points in 46 games, minus 8. Cam Fowler, minus 19. You're kind of seeing what the problem is here. It's just across the board. You have one guy as a plus, and that's Broberg. Goaltending, you're talking about 2 guys that are, 2.94 to 3.53. This is an opportunity where you should just come in and do your job and get the win. Play 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey. Don't let them in this thing. Don't fall into the trap game of, it's the Blues, they're going to be bad. We don't really have to try that hard. No, this is the league where you're going to have to try hard every game. But if you play your style, control the tempo, stuff like that, this is where you can really enforce your will on a team that's scoring less than 2.5 goals a game, almost giving up 3.5 a game. And there's a bunch of guys in the minuses, forwards and defense. This is you need to just impose your will, keep the foot on the gas, and get the win. It doesn't matter which goalie's in net. Defense isn't really helping out. Forwards ain't really scoring. It's just go and do your job. Like I said, they have 2 guys that have scored double digits. The Hurricanes have way more than that. Just go out there and do your thing. Just go and win this game. I know it sounds so simple, but it really is. Don't fall into the trap. Play 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey, control the tempo, and you're going to get the win. It's just limiting your mistakes, limiting the turnovers. Don't let the Blues try to control tempo. You control tempo. Score early against those goalies. Get them out of their rhythm. Don't give the Blues any opportunities on counterattacks or turnovers or stuff like that. And you should be back in the win column. And you're pushing this thing to a 6-game point streak, and you're moving on to the next one after that. So should be interesting to see how it plays out on Tuesday. Like I said, tail of the tape, Weiss Hurricanes have advantage across the board. Bussi's going to be in the net. Curious to see where the Blues are going to go, if it's going to be Hofer or Binnington. But either way, the Hurricanes should take care of business. But guys, this will need to the Hurricanes take the day. If you've never missed the episodes every day, get Locked On Hurricanes ad-free, plus a members-only Discord access and more. Head to the link in the show notes below or in the description to join today. For those of you on video, listening to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen to NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. If you want to keep up with me, my one-share Zach on X, the podcast is @LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin Ware. If you click the link to my bio, you can find all my written content at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're on YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me have the show as well. Share with other Caniacs so we can everydayers just like you. Well, hope everyone enjoyed the Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Tuesday and have fun watching your Hurricanes take on the St. Louis Blues. Until next time, as always, let's go, Canes.